everyone, and welcome to the My Ray of Sunshine podcast. My name is Mayra, and I'm here to help you receive the advice you deserve. Now, if you all are here, it's probably because you want to know exactly how you can embrace your roots, and what better person or people to ask than to ask Natasha and Lorena here with me today. So welcome, you guys.
Hey
Hi.
guys, we're
Thank
super
you.
excited.
Thank you for having us. We're so excited to do this.
Yes, it is. I can already tell it's gonna be like such a great time.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Definitely.
So tell us who you girls are and what your podcast is all about.
So, Lorena and I, we are best friends, obviously.
Yeah.
We've known each other since we were like in the kindergarten.
Yeah, a long time.
Wow.
Yeah, and
Yeah, we started a podcast because we always wanted to, and we always have good conversations with each other.
amazing
And
conversation.
we would always say that we want it recorded.
Yeah.
So we were like, okay, let's do a podcast then. So we started
Wow.
one around June, and we've been doing it since, and we love it. We love to just put our voices out there, put our perspectives out there, and see what other people have to think as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a great community. We just discovered it, and everyone's so inviting. You know, everyone respects everyone's views, and you can just express yourself however you want. It's awesome.
Yeah, that's so nice that you guys are able to do that together and kind of
Yeah.
help each other out and figure out the whole podcasting journey. Because speaking as a solo here, like it's so hard to figure everything out on my own. Like it's crazy. So it's nice to be able to have each other to support. And I can't believe you guys known each other for so long. That's amazing.
I know.
Props to you, girl, for doing this all by yourself.
Thank
know.
you. It's a lot to handle, but I'm sure you guys like have everything figured out with like, you know, exactly who does the engagement and all that stuff. So it's nice to be able to have someone accountable and just to keep you lifted.
Yeah, we definitely help each other out
for
whenever, you know, we're always working together. So
Yeah.
that's the best part about it.
It's a learning experience.
Yeah,
We're still
definitely.
new to it, so we're still learning every day about it.
You guys are killing it on social media, though. I gotta say. I love it. You guys are great. Like, honestly, when I first discovered your podcast, I was amazed because, first of all, it's Hispanic, and I was like, I love this. And just hearing both of you talk together, like, it just gives a different feel, like, versus just listening to one person. Having that communication going between the two of you is so nice. And I would always listen to it in my car rides, like, while I'm just, like, working. It's great. It's really great.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much for listening.
It's so fun. It's just, we're literally just having a conversation and it's recorded. I mean,
Yeah. You can tell that it's just like, you know, you guys do your thing, you guys have that deep conversations, and that's the whole point about podcasting, is just sharing your voice, putting it out there, and
yeah,
you know, not being afraid, especially having each other to lean on for support with that as well.
definitely.
Yeah, for sure.
Very true.
Yes. So what advice would you give others who have a hard time embracing their roots and embracing where they come from? Because so many people struggle with that, and you know, I don't know why. And I would hope to like help others, you know, just um, get out of their shell and be the best versions of themselves. But do you have any tips that you can provide?
Yeah, great question. You want to start us off?
Yeah, sure. So there's actually a lot of different factors. There's a lot, and it's different for everyone, I think. Depends on how they are and how they want to engage in it.
Mm-hmm.
But I just feel like it kind of begins with knowing that everyone is different. Everyone is unique. They have their own backgrounds, their own stories, and knowing that you have no reason to feel ashamed for accepting who you are and really embracing that and being proud. I feel like it's very important.
Yeah, for me, I think something really important in embracing your roots is hearing stories from your family members about all the adversity that they have faced before, because like our parents, and I'm sure maybe your parents as well, I mean, they've faced a lot of difficult things that we didn't have to. So I think hearing that from them is super beneficial, because then it makes you really proud to come where you come from, you know what I mean? And also just being educated on your roots. So if that means like learning the language or learning more history about it, learning cultural traditions, anything about education, learning in depth about what your roots actually are, I think that's a really good start to embracing it and feeling proud about it.
Yeah, I never even thought about, like, asking your family. What better person to rely on as a resource than just hearing their story, how they got to where they are now, and like everything about it, especially even if that means like just eating the food or listening to the music. There's so much that comes with just a culture, like, and a race, and just your background in general. And I actually had like someone that I knew who like kind of told a lot of people that they were a certain racial group, and then it turns out that they were ashamed about actually embracing who they really were. And they were not really saying exactly where they were coming from because they were ashamed, and they just didn't know, and they didn't want to be judged for being who they are. But I think like after they got out of their shell and really were able to embrace that, it's so inspirational to be able to go to your family and just talk to them about all of that, because that is what you need to feel more proud, in a sense, of your background.
Yeah, I definitely think that it starts within you to go out there and actually do that effort of learning, because then you'd be so proud to express it once you fully know it yourself.
Yeah, you need to make that connection with your culture and who you are. And once you feel that connection, you can fully embrace and be like, okay, this is me. This is a part of me.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, that's so great. Great advice.
Thank you.
And what advice would you give to others that are being bullied because they are coming from like a minority group, like Hispanics, African American, like all of those are minorities, and sometimes it's just as soon as people realize that you're different than them, they just immediately start judging. So how could others, kind of embrace that?
Yeah, I think it definitely begins with the kind of mindset you have. Well, first off, bullying is not okay. All right.
Yeah.
100% unacceptable to bully somebody because of where they come from, their race, anything. Bully, unacceptable. But I think for me specifically, because I've dealt with it before, for me, I had to definitely go inside of my own head and think that, well, why is this happening? Is it really because they're picking out and poking out things in me, or is more of them projecting something that they don't like about themselves? So for me, I had to make that distinction of they're hurting more, and that's why they try to hurt others. So I had to understand that and become empathetic to them. And I think that was something that really helped me out in terms of when like I would get bullied, because then for me, it wouldn't faze me, because I would know that they're doing it because it's coming from a place where they're hurt. And I had to learn to not accept it, but understand it, I guess, a little bit better in my head.
Right. And just kind of shift the perspective on it.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, I mean, especially like when people just bully others, and you're completely right when you say that it just resembles more of their character, more of their hurt, instead of you. Like, the problem is them. If they're taking the time out of their day to write a mean comment or try to put you down, like, that's just saying a lot about their life. And in a sense, you kind of have to, rather than embracing it, just understand that, okay, they might not be in the best place, and just hope that they can get to where they want to be eventually.
Yeah,
definitely. That's why I like to say that the bullying, I know it's hard to ignore it sometimes. And definitely if there is someone that's being mistreated, You should stand up for them and for yourself, but not in a violent way, in a mature way. That's how you should do it, in a mature way. And I feel like once you do that, you're not stooping down to their level. You're kind of keeping, that peace within yourself and knowing that what they're saying, that's theirs. That's not yours. So don't accept it as yours. So keep that peace within yourself. That's what I think.
Yeah, because you have to be the bigger person when it comes to that. And
yeah,
there's no point in stooping down to their level and trying to get them to understand if it's not even going to get to them, or they're not even going to understand because they're not mentally ready or there yet.
Yeah. Right. I think in terms of like being a minority, I think society always wants you to think that being a minority is a disadvantage, which I 100% disagree. I think being a minority is super powerful, and us as minorities, we get to go through these things and then help others, and I think that's super like it's heartening, and it's something that's beneficial. Instead of looking at it as being a disadvantage, shift it so that you could think of it as an advantage.
Exactly, because we have a lot of perks. We have so many perks, and we have like so many like just inner pride with where we come from, and just our family roots, and what really makes us who we are now today. And there's no shame in like feeling like, okay, I'm less capable of accomplishing my dreams, like I'm not going to be able to do this or that because I'm a minority. But the reality is, like, it has nothing to do with that. You have to prove yourself that you can do it. That way, all the other minority groups could like cheer you on, like, because we all kind of have to like support each other and lift each other up rather than, tear everyone down.
Yeah, don't lessen your value just because of what others try to categorize you as. Don't do that.
Yeah, it's so important not to, and to keep that in mind, and have that perception of it. So what do you think people can do to learn about those cultural differences instead of judging others because of it?
I feel like a big part about learning about cultural differences is having an open mind. A lot of people don't have an open mind, and they're not open to understanding others. That's a big issue we have nowadays everywhere. It's not just here. And once you tie in those things of being open-minded, of wanting to understand, you will be able to see people for who they are and not judge them. And that's something that goes on way too much, unfortunately. And I just feel like people need to respect others, just like you want to be respected, right? I just think that's
I think people definitely need to understand that we're all brothers and sisters here. And I feel like the world is always trying to divide us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So always remember that, like, to watch out for one another, to constantly be learning these things. And like you said, I definitely agree with being open-minded, because when you're open-minded, then that judgment never comes, that bullying never comes, because you understand that there are different perspectives out there, there's different religions out there, there's different cultures out there. So once you have that understanding, I think it's better for the world, because then you wouldn't be judging others and bringing that hate into the world.
Right. Because just because you are near someone who has a different background than you, or has a different belief, whether that be religion, their race, anything like that, like, just because you're near them doesn't mean like, oh wait, I should feel like, now that's rubbing off on me or anything like that. Like, you have to really be open-minded, and like, you don't even have to agree with everything that they do. Like, that doesn't mean that you have to 100% be like just like them and convert yourself into their culture, or try to immerse yourself and learn more. Like, you can simply just continue asking questions. It's okay to be curious. I think being curious is actually a great thing, especially when it comes to learning about different backgrounds, because I know usually religion and all of those things are like very sticky topics to talk about, but
Yeah.
sometimes it's great to be able to see like where their mind is at, like what happens in their culture, like why do they believe things are a certain way, and how does that differ from your beliefs as well. And I think that it's all about a part of like learning and being able to, you know, distinguish the differences and still be okay with that, because you know at the end of the day you guys are both individual people, and you
Mhm.
can go on with your life and they can go on with theirs, and at least hopefully you got something out of that conversation and we're able to get some knowledge from that. So
Exactly.
it's all about just asking questions and like you said, being open-minded and not shutting yourself out from the possibility of just learning something new that could
Yeah.
be a really great lesson to learn.
Yeah, I also think that education plays a really vital role in like learning cultural differences because we're
Mm-hmm.
college students and we've learned, I mean, so much about so many different cultures. And I think having and knowing that background of a lot of different cultures really helps you understand them a little bit better. But then
Mm-hmm.
also, like you said, becoming immersed in that culture is also a really big thing. But I do think the education part is something a lot of people don't do, and I think that's super important because learning the history about a culture is super important to knowing where the future of that culture goes as well.
And remaining respectful. I feel like people lose respect because of all these stereotypes, the categorizations that they want to put on people. So remembering that what is theirs, and what's yours is yours, and you just respect it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And personally, I love learning from like other cultures, and
Yeah.
Me too.
it's so interesting because like you
Mhm.
can really learn so much even from the food that they eat, and like what
Yeah.
traditions like are a huge part of their lives. Like I find so much inspiration in that alone, and in a sense like it helps me understand them better, and it's just a great way to kind of connect with other people that are different from you, that you can, you know, still support as well. Like you can still learn so much from just that relationship.
Yeah, and there's so much out there. There's so much out there.
Yeah.
Like, wouldn't you be curious just to
Yeah.
know, just to
Yeah.
experience it?
Yeah, exactly. Like there really are so many different backgrounds and so many traditions along the way, and you really don't know where to start. But you know, if you have a friend that is different from you, like ask about their traditions, like what
Mhm.
holidays do they celebrate, like why do they
Yeah.
believe a certain thing is possible or something. Like it's all a matter of just getting yourself out there and being able to communicate, because that's what
Yeah.
it really comes
Mhm.
down to, is communication.
Yeah, and I think you said this before, and it's something I really liked. You once said that like we crave connection as human beings,
Yeah,
and I think that's very true. Like we want to be
Yes.
connected to others.
yeah,
We
Mm-hmm.
want to learn that, you know what I mean? So I think that's beautiful.
it is.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah, it's really nice and inspirational to
Yeah.
have that connection and keep it going, rather than, you know, allowing our differences to take over and then just separate us in general.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
And how has it been for the both of you growing up Hispanic, and how has it been at home and at school?
Okay, this is a big one. Big
Yes,
one.
it is.
So we obviously we went to the same same
Elementary
elementary
school.
school.
Wow.
So we were really blessed because in our town we have a really big Hispanic community.
Mm-hmm.
So literally our kindergarten teacher was bilingual.
Yeah.
And all of the students, I think more than half, like Spanish was their first language and they
Mhm.
were learning English. So they were ESL. And we were super blessed in the terms that we, in kindergarten, we didn't feel like that being outsiders.
Mhm.
We didn't experience that just because like there were so many Hispanic, so many bilingual students there.
Mm-hmm.
So for us, like we're really blessed.
We really were. And not just for us, for our parents as well,
Yeah.
because they're
Mm-hmm.
only Spanish speakers. So the fact that we had peers and their parents also as Spanish speakers, we could create a good community there. So that was very helpful.
Yeah. And I also think like everyone's experience is different because like for just to go on a little bit of tangent, my sister had a really hard time because she didn't have the same class that we did, and she went in and most of them only spoke English, and her being an only Spanish speaker, well, she felt like the outsider because she couldn't communicate, she couldn't make friends, she sat alone. So I think everyone's experience with that is a little bit different.
Yeah, for sure. It's great that you guys were able to be surrounded by the Hispanic community and kind of not let that keep you from like learning or having friends, you know, by your side, and even having like a bilingual teacher that you can talk to, because I sure didn't have I did not have that at all. The funny thing is that like when I went to kindergarten and in first grade and all that, I would be taken into like ESOL classes, like English as a second language. I didn't even know what I was there for. Like I didn't know until growing up. I was like, oh wait, I didn't really know anything. Like I thought I knew stuff, like I would speak the language, like I would speak in English, everything, but there seemed to be something that I was still lacking in that sense. And that's why they would take like, I remember they would just call me out of class and I was like, oh, I must be really smart. It was just that I was really slacking. And I was like with a group of kids that were like Russian from different countries, but I didn't really think anything of that because I was so young, and I just realized that, okay, like maybe like they're just giving us a different reading lesson or something like that. But yeah, it took me a while until it actually clicked that I was in like English as a second language classes. Like I had no idea.
Yeah, so we went to the same elementary school, and then we also went to the same middle school, but we didn't go to the same
high school.
And I know you have a different experience.
Yeah, for me, high school was very interesting. So in our town, we have a big Hispanic community. I ended up going to high school in another town where it was mainly white. And I went in there fresh. I didn't know anybody. I actually didn't even see any Hispanic friend groups. There wasn't really much to connect to. So I did feel very much, at first I was very uncomfortable because I didn't feel like I could really connect with anybody on a deeper level. And it was hard. It was not that easy. But, you know, you kind of have to just deal with it. You're set in this situation where you kind of have to just navigate and make new friends and build different bonds with them if possible. But that was a major change for me, definitely.
Yeah. For me, I had the complete opposite experience because all of our friends and the big majority of the Hispanic community was all at my high school. So you'd see Hispanics everywhere.
Oh my gosh, I'm jealous. That's great.
My transition to high school was pleasant.
Yeah, that's nice. I mean, it's crazy how like a different town, a different area that you're not used to, like can really be so different. And in a sense, you can kind of feel like a fish out of water, not knowing like, you know, where you belong, because sometimes people in school, high school in general, there are so many cliques out there, and you just kind of try to make friends, and it's just wrong when people like know that you're Hispanic and then it's like, oh, well, you know, you don't really belong to being our friends or in our friend group. But it's all about a learning, and I guess it just makes us stronger in a sense to have those experiences and being able to still be comfortable with our roots regardless.
Yeah, we were super blessed because the Bay Area is super diverse. You can find anything out here, honestly. There's all different types of cultures, religion, all of that out here. So we're super blessed.
I mean, the high school that I went to is literally just like 5 miles away.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's very next to this town. Yeah. So, I mean, the difference is huge. Yeah. And it's funny because, I mean, if you look at me, you wouldn't, some people don't right away say, oh, you're Hispanic, right? Because I'm pretty pale and I do have like blue eyes. So I kind of fit in with them. but I didn't feel like I fit in emotionally and mentally.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No, I completely relate to you 110%. Like every time I would tell my friends, like I would try to make friends and, I would see someone who was Hispanic. I'm like, oh, hey, yeah, me too. They're like, no, you're not. And I'm like, what? How are you going to tell me?
rude.
No. And they're like, you don't look Hispanic. And I'm like, like ask me anything. Like tell me to say something in Spanish. And they would put me in a test. They're like, okay, say like they wouldn't even know if I said it right or not. But they're like, okay, say like the grass is green, and then I would say it, and they're like, oh
My
wow. Like
See,
I had to prove myself so much.
the stereotypes, going back to the
Yeah.
stereotypes that they put on us, like it's crazy.
Yeah, she gets that all the time. Like every time she talks Spanish, like the room stops and everybody looks at her and they're like shook.
It'd be so funny at work too. It'd be hilarious at work. They would just be talking Spanish, and sometimes they would talk, like bad stuff, and then I would just pop out speaking Spanish, and they'd be like, oh.
Oh my gosh, yeah, the stereotypes is still there, unfortunately. And it's just so hard because, like, sometimes we don't even realize that we are also, like, judging from what we see. And we might not know they're Hispanic or like us or different, So it's like there's so many assumptions there.
Yeah.
But it's a struggle when, you don't fit the criteria. And it's just like having to constantly prove yourself that, yes, I speak Spanish. Oh gosh, I'm glad I'm not the only one because I'm like, oh, so bad.
Yeah. Okay, so can we talk about the Hispanic at home?
Yes,
about that.
A lot.
yes.
Oh my goodness.
So, for me specifically, I think growing up Hispanic, yes, it's a blessing, but there are a lot of things that like we don't like put out, like our struggles that we have to face. So for me specifically in my home, one thing that really popped up when I saw this question was one of the most hardest things that I had was showing my emotions. Because in my household, my parents were really, really strict. And my dad always like big man, tough man, so he would never show his emotions at all. So for me growing up, it was hard for me to express how I was feeling because I had never been taught that at home. Right. So that's definitely was something that, not a traumatic experience, but it was something that was when I came into the real world, it was like, oh, you actually want to know how I feel and what I think. And it was crazy to me because I was always just, emotionless all the time.
Yeah. Because you thought that was the right way to do it, like right way to go about it.
That's how I grew up. That's how I thought it was gonna be, and then just was not that way at all. But also like a lot, like my parents, they were big on like discipline. And you have to act this way, and you should be this way. There was a lot of expectations, which we've talked about before, and a lot of pressure put on us being also first generation students. So them always like, you got to get good grades, you got to go to school, you got to do this. And I know it comes from a good place. They want us to do better and be better than, and have better than what they had. But it does come with a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
And that pressure for me, it was a little bit hard to handle.
Of course.
Me too. I definitely agree with her. We immigrated here. It was hard, especially being so young. I learned the English language fast, but there was this amount of pressure, so much pressure on me to not only help my parents with just communicating with everyone, but I had this pressure to like succeed and be better and do better. And I know it comes from a good place, but it was a lot sometimes where to the point where you're scared to do things, where, they're forcing you, well, not forcing you, but really encouraging you to be a perfect person, to do well, to not mess up. The not messing up part was very prominent in my life. So I always, I was like the good girl, and I always tried to do everything correct. Yeah. And that really that was really tough. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, for sure. I think something that like popped up to my mind when you were talking was like that we had it hard in a different way than they did, because I mean we come here and we're bilingual, and then they're still trying to learn the language, because I feel like for us as kids, like being in school, we learned it a lot quicker than our parents. So like we're out here like filling out like forms that we have no idea what we're filling out, mortgages, like medical,
At like 8 years old.
And they just give it to us, like expecting us to know what we're doing. And it's like we're like 10 years old and we don't know what the heck
I know. On phone calls, making appointments, going on these conversations with these adults who are like 40, 50 years old. I'm like, okay, I'm trying my best.
Yeah. Oh, that's so funny, because I can relate in so many different levels. Like, definitely the strictness and having that pressure to do the best thing that you can do, like, and never mess up. And it was always like a strict line to follow all the time, and it was really, really difficult for me growing up as well. And you know, Hispanic parents, they could really like be very strict. But but
something my dad said that I'll never forget, like whenever I'm like crying, he would always be like, ¿Quieres llorar? Yo te hago llorar. And I'm like, oh my God.
That's what my mom told me.
That's how my experience was growing up in Hispanic household.
Yeah, she would be like, que llores con razón, or something like that.
Yes. Oh my God.
I'm like,
crazy, I swear. Traumatized.
Yeah.
I know.
Can we talk about gender roles real quick?
Of course. No, I don't.
Oh, you don't?
Are you an only child?
No, I have 2 sisters, so I'm the middle.
Okay.
Yeah. So for me, I have an older brother, and man, the gender roles that they put on us, it's insane. Because, you know, my mom's over here cooking and cleaning for him, but then for me, she's like, you could do it, you're a woman. And oh man, you know how many arguments we had because of that?
Yeah.
But not just that, like going out, like I could never be out past like 10, but then he could come back like the next day. And I'm like, huh?
Yeah.
What?
Gender roles were different, very different for a woman than a man, which I don't like.
Very old school, and that's gotta go.
Seriously. I mean, I live with my grandparents and my family as well, and it's crazy because my grandparents are so old school, and my grandma does everything for my grandpa. Like he comes home from work tired, and the second he walks through the door, she's heating up his food, setting the table, like putting the table on like putting the food on the table, like putting the forks, everything. And then all he does is literally go upstairs, like he changes, and then he comes downstairs and eats. And I'm like, you didn't do anything. I'm like, why is this happening? And like sometimes like we'll be in family reunions, and we always have some for every single occasion, like birthdays, all of that. So sometimes like my boyfriend will be over, and like I'm expected to like make his plate as well, and I'm like, no.
I know, we don't like that.
Oh,
we talk about this a lot. Too much machismo in Hispanic culture. It's ridiculous, honestly.
Seriously,
way too much.
I just couldn't believe it, because I'm like, no, you guys do your own thing, I respect it, like I don't agree with it, but don't think that I'm gonna like be at my boyfriend's feet, like giving him food and everything that he wants. Like like where is he treating me like a princess, you know?
Right? It has to be equal.
Yeah, exactly. I'm all about equality, because I don't know, the older generations just have it all mixed up.
I don't know about that.
They expect like women to like just be house moms and clean and cook. Which nothing wrong with that, but like I mean, now in our generation, we strive for so much more than that. Now.
Yeah.
So it's like, nah.
We both doing the work here.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I had to lay down the rules for my boyfriend too, because I was like, okay, if I cook, like I love cooking, so I'm like, oh, like I'll be like always in the kitchen because I love making something, which is bad for women, but like I just love cooking, like it makes me happy. So I was like, okay, so I don't have an issue like making the food for you, just as long as you clean it up. Like let us do like let us meet each other like halfway, and that way like you know we can eat and like everything's clean afterwards. Like I'm not asking for much. So luckily he was able to agree with that and you know meet me halfway as well. But I'm like I can't do everything. Like this is crazy. It's too much pressure.
Yeah, we gotta set the rules down.
Yeah.
Sure.
Because if we don't, who else will?
Yeah.
Like
right. If they already do it like on their own, then that's even better. You know, if you don't have to ask to do it, that's. But you know, it all depends. Sometimes it's just these old teachings. I don't know why it's still going on. We have to teach everyone better, teach the future generation better, and just really know that this sexism, it doesn't need to be happening anymore. That can stay in the past. We don't need it here.
Yeah, don't bring it over here, please.
No.
And how would you say you were able to embrace any of the stereotypes? I know we touched a little bit about that, like not looking Hispanic and, you know, how it affected your life that way.
So, when it comes to stereotypes, I really don't like them. I don't like to believe in them. So I see them as judgments, you know, and I don't like to embrace judgment. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, I am not going to accept that judgment. What you think is what you think, but it's not mine. Like, it's not mine. I do not accept it. So I'm not going to let it affect me in any way. That's how I kind of see it.
Yeah. I kind of see it as like, I mean, like we're constantly breaking whatever stereotype is put on us as Hispanics, as women, you know? So I think just proving those stereotypes wrong is the way to kind of like, not to embrace it, because like I don't feel like you should be embracing stereotypes, but like embracing the fact that you're proving them wrong is the good time.
Yeah, like standing up to it.
Yes, right. And like not letting them define you and define who you are is a big thing.
Very big. That's really important.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Because I mean, the more you let it affect you, it's just you keep like subconsciously putting yourself down too. Because you're like, why? You know, like I would always put myself down and tell myself like, I don't look Hispanic, you know, like how can I say, oh, I'm Peruvian? Like that was always against the family rules. If I said that, it was like you weren't born there, you're American. And it's like, so I'm just gonna ignore the fact that I know, like I have all the roots, like I know the language, like how can I just forget that big part of my life, you know? So I think a lot of it is just standing up and like in a sense being the bigger person and continuing to mold the future generations for, you know, the Hispanic community, all of that, and just being ourselves in the process and not changing for anyone else.
Yeah, and I don't really think you have to strive to prove anything to anyone. As long as you're at peace with yourself and you know your truth, I think that's what matters beyond anything.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's great. I'll keep that in mind. Yeah, because I've always, you know, loved embracing like my culture and everything. It's just annoying when like, you know, family doesn't like, you know, agree, but you know, it is what it is. It's okay.
Yeah, just don't keep it in here, because once you keep it in here and in here, it's gonna eat you up. So just let it go. Know your worth, know who you are, and embrace it. Love yourself. I feel like that's very important for anybody to do.
Yeah, thank you. So sweet. Oh man. And would you say it was challenging growing up being bilingual, speaking multiple languages at a young
So
age?
yeah, so for me, I feel like I have a little bit different experience than what people would actually think. Obviously, being bilingual, yes, it's hard. It's hard learning two languages and sometimes at the same time, you know?
Yeah.
So for me, growing up, like I said, we're super blessed to have a big Hispanic community. So my challenge wasn't necessarily like in middle school or elementary school. My challenge came in high school when I, was using English for so long that I
Mm-hmm.
my Spanish was not so good.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I still struggle with this to this day. My Spanish isn't the best. I consider myself bilingual, but I could definitely improve.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, like I would say something in Spanish and then I would say it wrong and then I get made fun of. So
Mm.
I had to, like, my challenge was not letting what people like judge me about like my Spanish, like not letting that get to me. Because if I let it get to me, which I once did, it kind of made me stop wanting to speak Spanish altogether.
Yeah.
So for me, I had to really sit down with myself and be like, look, I can listen to these people that are saying my Spanish is terrible, or I could keep on learning, keep improving to prove these people wrong and just feel better about my Spanish. I think that I had to feel better about it and feel okay with just that I'm constantly learning and I'm constantly learning different words and different things because we could always improve. With anything,
Everything.
language, I don't know, learning something, there's always room for improvement. So for me, that was my challenge, is being and overcoming wanting to speak Spanish after being judged because of my Spanish. That was my experience.
And for me, actually, so my first language is Spanish, and then I went to school. I started learning English, and one day I just started coming home speaking English, and my parents didn't understand English at that time. So we kind of had to agree that at home it would only be Spanish, and outside it could be English. So being bilingual, it's very rewarding. It can be tough, but very rewarding. I will say that sometimes I'm an only child, so
Okay.
if I had a question about school or I didn't understand something, I couldn't always go to my parents for help, and so that was one struggle. But still, to this day, it's very rewarding. I mean, you see jobs and places wanting people who are bilingual, so it's definitely important and it's beautiful. So yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy because that was literally my household as well. Like I would come home from school and I'm like talking to my mom in English. She's like, "No te entendí nada." And I'm
Yeah.
like, "What?" Because she literally didn't really understand English to that extent. So I was
Yeah.
like, what am I supposed to do? Like, how could I talk to my mom? And she's like, "Say everything that you were gonna say in Spanish." And like she kind of trained me in a way, like without me even knowing, like to think in both languages and try to like translate exactly what I was trying to get across to her. Maybe not in the best way because it is challenging speaking two languages and you're gonna mess up, you're gonna like say words a different way, like conjugations are crazy. So it's just like it's like so much to consider. And I remember like I would really get frustrated with myself and like there was a point where I didn't want to speak anymore because like it was such a challenge for me to translate that like it was just too much. So I'm like, maybe I didn't need to tell her that like I ate a peanut butter and jelly sandwich at lunch. Like she wouldn't care about that. But I really would think twice about like sharing a story in fear of having to translate it over. But then I guess the more she would ask about my day in Spanish, like the more she would, you know, like engage in conversation and want to get me talking, like the more I started developing that love for Spanish. And it didn't happen when I was younger because I was like, English is easier, my friends speak English, like I'm learning this in school, like I don't want or feel the need to learn a different language or keep strengthening my Spanish skills, but I feel like it was definitely very rewarding for me to have my mom behind me, and her fear was that I would forget and that I just wouldn't want to speak Spanish anymore. So she kept like enforcing it, and then like now I'm so grateful that she did, because that's what I'm going to do with my future kids. Like
And
literally.
you should, yeah.
Yeah.
See, that's the beauty that we had at school. We actually had Hispanic friends, so we could, put a little Spanish in there here and there in our conversations.
Yeah.
Even joking, or like when you didn't want another student to hear, we would just talk in Spanish.
Yes,
So that was fun.
That's the best.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice being able to like have both languages, and at the same time like being able to give yourself a break, because even like learning both languages, like it's so difficult to do that simultaneously. Like it's already hard to learn a language at our age now, like a completely new one, and then like having to piece things together and like engage in conversation with family and like try to be perfect at it every single time. That's tough. It's really, really tough. And I give both of you credit for like, keeping yourself like motivated to continue speaking the language, because some people like they just toss it aside and don't want to. And that would have been me, because I was like literally not really sure how I would benefit from that. But like you mentioned, like in jobs, everything, like absolutely anywhere, there's always the necessity to speak two languages. And even like when I was little, I would get challenged and I would be in class, doing my homework, and then there would be a Spanish speaking student, and then the teachers were desperate and they didn't know who to ask for, so they're like, does anyone speak Spanish? And I'm like, me. And then they're like, really? Like, what the heck? I didn't know you spoke Spanish. So then I would talk to her, and then it was like, helpful. So those little things here and there that like I experienced growing up, like the people that I've helped, like the students that I've helped, like in school or like coworkers at work, like all of that is so beneficial. And that's why it's so rewarding being able to maintain both languages to the best of our abilities.
Yeah, very rewarding. I would always feel very happy when I was able to help somebody who only spoke Spanish and translate. Makes me feel good.
Yeah, exactly. Because it makes you feel like, okay, finally, I learned this language for a reason. My family was like pushing it down my throat for the longest time. It paid off.
Yeah.
And how would you say that you would try to welcome in the Hispanic community for future generations to come? Like whether that's your future kids or your future nieces and nephews, like, and having them like, interact in the Spanish community altogether.
So I would definitely, like, if we're talking about future generations, teach them everything. Don't think that you have to hide this Hispanic Latin side of you. Like, teach your kids, teach them the language, the culture, expose them to the music, to the people. Go to places where Hispanics go. I don't know. Just immerse yourself into it. And also, if you do see someone who is Hispanic and Latin, you know how sometimes in every culture, sometimes there is this whole, like, it could be arrogant. Some people can be mean or rude or like not accepting. Be accepting of people. Be nice, no matter what, just be kind and engage in conversation, invite them over. I don't know, food's always awesome.
Oh, that's how you can get to their hearts.
Yes.
Yeah, I definitely want to teach my kids Spanish, because like I see at like parties, you see this new generation, they don't really take the time to learn Spanish, so then they can't communicate with like their grandparents or something. And I think I see that as a really big problem.
Yeah,
then they can't learn from them in any way and learn from their roots. And I think that I'm definitely teaching my kids Spanish for sure. Because I think it's important to know the language that you come from, so that you can communicate with others and then learn more through the language.
Connect more.
Yeah. And I think food is a big one. Like I love cooking. Love it.
The best. The cooking, the eating, perfect match. Yeah, I mean, that's really true though, because you really do have to immerse yourself in the culture. You have to encourage them to speak the language and to keep those family traditions going and allowing them in a sense to feel comfortable by knowing the language, because
Yeah.
I would hate for my future kids to like not know what the heck like I'm talking about with my mom, you know, because I feel
Yeah.
actually weird if I talk to my mom in English. Like it's so strange to me. But that's why I'm always talking to her in Spanish. But like that's why I feel that it's so important, especially in my family, in my household. Like you need to speak it. There's no ifs, ands, or
Yeah.
buts.
Yeah.
And that was actually like my fear, because so my boyfriend, he's white, and that's why, like that's what I was worried about. Like if in the future like we have kids, I'm like, I don't want them to lose that language. Like I'm sorry if you don't know it fluently. I can teach you as much as I can. Also, I'm not like really the best teacher at all, because there's, where do you start teaching someone in Spanish? Like
I know,
I
you
have
just start
no
talking.
idea.
That's how you.
Yeah. And he's like, you're a bad teacher. And I'm like, I have no idea where to begin. Like all the conjugations, like I don't know how to like dissect the language. I just know how to speak it, and I'm sorry. But I remember I had a serious conversation with him, and I was like, you know, in the future, like if we were to have kids, like I don't want them to lose that side of them. Like I am going to be the one talking to them in Spanish. Like if he's not around, I'm going to be the one like talking in Spanish with them, trying to get them to open up to me and in a different language. And then obviously when he comes home, it'll just switch. But it's just it's just like the little mental strategy that I have already implemented for my future kids that don't plan on coming out anytime soon. But it's just it's just like it's just like always been my biggest concern, and like my, you know, this is non-negotiable kind of thing. Like I have to have the future generations know what is going on in the family parties.
It'll help them so much too. I mean, building actual good connections with family and other Spanish speakers, and you too.
Mhm.
So I love it. I'm all for the bilingual, trilingual, whatever, more.
Yeah.
How many languages you want.
Exactly. And plus it's better like the sooner you start teaching them like at a young age, that's when it'll stick and they'll never forget. Apparently it's like the age 4. The notes I took in college. I'm like, oh, okay. Better start talking to them in Spanish. But what would you say would be a way that our society can start normalizing the different cultural differences, especially with everything going on with the Black Lives Matter movement and how it's still happening to this day?
It's a really great question. I've said this before on our podcast. I think
I listened.
America just has a problem with equality, and I don't know why. I don't know why we can't just accept people for who they are, you know what I mean? But I think one way in which we could normalize coming from different cultural backgrounds, I think it honestly comes back to, you have to understand it first. You have to understand that people are not just like you, that people come from different places of the world with different stories, with different perspectives. So I think that's where we should start, is first understanding yourself and others as well, so that you don't go out there and judge, because you already now have that understanding of whatever it may be, like where another culture came from, where what they have struggled with, or anything like that. But yeah, I think that's definitely important to understand. So I feel like people don't take the time to do that at all. I think we definitely need to.
Yeah, I feel like people need to also not think that them and where they're from is the best and the best place in the world or best people in the world, because you can't be that arrogant, you know, you can't be that self-centered and just think that it's all you and your way of thinking is correct and the way that you are is correct and the way that you look like is the way it should be, you know. It goes back to respecting people and then being open-minded. I don't know, like you said, we have a huge problem with categorization
Mm-hmm.
in this world, not just this country, this world, where everyone needs to fit into this certain criteria, this certain category. Oh, you're this, you're this, you know, you're that, you're that. You can't be everything. Like you can't just, I don't know, there's too much division going on
Mm-hmm.
and there's no unity. So we can't have unity unless all those other factors, the understanding, the open-mindedness, the respect, the humbleness
Mm-hmm.
comes into play, which is very
Yeah.
hard for everybody.
Seriously. But a lot of it does come with understanding and being willing to, if you're not understanding like a concept or why certain things are going on and happening in the world, like you have to go into it and really, really pinpoint the root cause of it and like what is actually causing this separation, what is causing people to be angry and furious, like all those things. They're just not randomly, like they didn't wake up one day and was like, you know what, I'm just gonna like fire everything, you know, like there's definitely something that has triggered them and has triggered them for a long time. So it's just
Builds up.
yeah, it builds up. And I feel that the more that you start learning and want to really know the root cause of what's going on and really dig yourself deep into their history as well and how it's been a recurring factor, and which is a shame. Like it's just like if you don't take the time out of your day to really pinpoint why this is happening, then you know you're just going to have your opinion. And like it's just much better if you can base it with facts, at least just base it with the facts and try to be open-minded as possible.
Yeah, it's actually insane to me how, you know, for example, we have the Black Lives Matter protests,
Mm-hmm.
and it's insane to me that there are actually groups of people opposing these protests, the Black Lives Matter protests. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you don't think that people deserve equality, that they deserve protection, that they deserve, you know, I don't understand why people are so opposed to these protests.
Yeah, and with that being said, a lot of people want to devalue the Black Lives Matter movement and say, well, don't all lives matter?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, no kidding, all lives matter. But this
Yeah.
group of people are being oppressed and have been oppressed and are continuing to be oppressed constantly, and they've had enough of it. I saw this one tweet one time that said, America should be glad that Black people just want equality and not revenge. And I think that's super true.
It's powerful.
Yeah, sheesh. That is very powerful. I mean, it's things that you don't even like put into perspective, and it like these events have to happen in order for you to take a step back and really reflect on what exactly is going on. Like where is their head, like where is their headspace going, like because such a shame that it had to get to that point, and you know there was violence involved and all that. So it's just like to be able to understand, you know, people's lives are being lost, and it's a true shame when they're the most innocent, and it's just like just because of the color of their skin they're just going to be targeted immediately, no questions asked. And that is what should definitely change. And I feel like there should always be justice for every Black person that lost their life with no reason, like without a single reason. It's really heartbreaking, and I just can't believe that it's actually something that we're facing in the world. But how would you feel? I mean, how did you kind of get the resources that you needed to like get into that understanding and immerse yourself into the knowledge of what's the history was all about?
So, are you referring to the Black Lives Matter movement?
Yeah, or just in general.
Just in general, I feel like you need to realize that there are people who are suffering, and bottom line is everyone deserves basic human rights, you know? So, if you're seeing something going on, really research it. If you're seeing that in a situation happen, research it, figure out what happened, look at the videos, read the articles, reach out to people. I mean, just again, understand and really gain that knowledge of what is going on, so then you can make your point of view and you can defend what you feel like you need to defend.
Yeah. I think, like, for me, books are definitely a really good resource, because you can, like, there's tons of, like, biographies of people that have struggled with depression and being slaves and all these other different things. But also during the Black Lives Matter movement, I think documentaries are super important as well.
Yes.
And I wrote a couple down. There are a couple on Netflix that you could check out. They're called The Central Park Five, The Death and Life of Marsha P. Johnson, I Am Not Your Negro, The Black Panther, Dark Girls, LA 92, Rest in Power, The Trayvon Martin Story, and Whose Streets. So you can look these all up on Netflix, and I think they're amazing in putting that history out there and actually making people feel what it was like. Or is like to go through these things.
Yes,
and you should care. Like, you should definitely care, because it's not just about one group of people. It's eventually, like, this affects everyone. But we want to help people, so you need to inform yourself, and then you can figure out how to help them. So it's like also changing, you know, if you're a person who doesn't really understand or doesn't want to understand or feels very differently from the situation, informing yourself might make you change your mindset. And I think that's what needs to happen to a lot of people.
And it all starts with you taking that step first and saying, okay, I don't think I know too much about this history. Let me go in and watch a documentary, read a book, go online. There are so many resources out there. Even the movie that I watched when all of this was going on was The Hate U Give, which was extremely powerful, and it really does put things into perspective, because things that we wouldn't even consider would be an issue, like it's a major issue in so many people's lives, in their minds, like their fear of being targeted, and that's what needs to stop, and that's what people need to really, really like understand, to just try to like embrace that and kind of have that mindset switch to more of a positive like effect for the world.
And then spreading awareness too, like that's what we try to do, spread awareness by making a whole episode about that, just really letting people know. And then if people agree with us, awesome, and if they don't, maybe they'll take something away from it that will help them maybe change how they think. So we're really happy to be able to do something, no matter how small it is.
That's so inspirational, because I'm sure it did help a lot of people. Like, I loved listening to that episode and just learning so much about the history as well, because it really did show that you guys both did your research and were putting out facts, and I love that, because sometimes like the news is just too hard to watch, and I know that when I watched the video of like his murder, like it scarred me. I couldn't even I couldn't get it out of my head. So it's just, sometimes it's just nice to know the facts without having the constant of the news or having to worry about the virus along with it. Like, there's so many resources out there in the internet, and that will be helpful for everyone, hopefully, to get a better understanding of what is going on.
Yeah, of course.
So, girls, like, where can everyone find you?
So, did we even say our podcast name?
I don't think we did. Oh my gosh. So we are
Yo hablo lo que me da la gana. And you can find us anywhere. You can find us on
Spotify,
Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Instagram, Twitter. all platforms.
everywhere.
That's awesome. That's so great. Yeah, I definitely think that everyone should follow you guys, because you guys have such a great podcast. Like I said the other day, I was telling my mom, like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be interviewing them, and like I told them your podcast name, and she was like, oh my gosh, I love it. Like she really did love the name. For anyone who doesn't really know what it means, it's just I say what I want to say. Like that's
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's what
See,
it
like
is.
we get asked, what is our podcast about? Like, what do we talk about? And we're like, literally anything we want to talk about. That's the name.
Because we can.
Yeah.
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 That's awesome. So everyone should definitely follow you guys. And I really do thank you both so much for being on this podcast and shedding the light and helping others embrace their roots, because it is more difficult than it should be, and people should be able to feel comfortable from where they come from and immerse themselves in their own culture.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having us. This
Thank
was
you.
super fun.
Of course. I'm so glad it happened. And
Yes.
so everyone, I really hope this podcast made you smile at least once. Stay tuned for more advice and positivity next Friday. As always, it's Mayra. I hope you guys took something great away from this episode from Natasha and Lorena. They really did help shed the light, and hopefully they inspired you to embrace your roots completely, be who you are, and really stand up for yourself as well. Stand up for your culture and just do it for your family, really. Like, I'm sure they'd be really proud. And even if that means taking a step by, trying out a cultural food, or listening to typical music, or following any traditions whatsoever, like, please feel more than comfortable to do that, and remember that you are helping contribute to this community and the world, and allowing it to be more of a place where hopefully we get to it, but the acceptance part and the unity part, and hopefully that's all that we need to get that awareness going. Bye.
Definitely.
Everyone say
Bye. Thank you.